You're stuck with me till then.
I'm stuck with you. What do you?
All right. I'll be really.
I'd like to call it to order the Winnebago County Human Services Board meeting. My name is Ralph Harrison. I'm the vice chairman. I'm filling in for Larry. He called in, had something he had to do and he couldn't make it. So I appreciate everyone showing up. Karen Powers also called me and said that she wasn't feeling good, wouldn't be here either. So I appreciate everyone coming in. I ran here, so I'm kind of dressed and work. I'm doing Celebration of Life. So I ran here to get her to be on time. So I appreciate it. And you almost beat me, but yes, I agree. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. First. All right.
I hope y'all know who you are.
First, any public comments from anybody in the room here?
Sure. Happy New Year, everybody. And I want to say that I am discovering so much about the people that I am working with. And everybody seems to have activities that they are doing outside of the county board. And it's just specifically Ralph, because I know that. Becky, you as well, as far as other stuff going on. It is wonderful to see that it is a community. It's not just a county. So thank you.
I do have something, Mr. Chairman. I want to wish happy birthday to our chairman. Today is his birthday.
Appreciate it. It's the only way I like spending it, doing Celebration of Life with some prisoners and you guys. So that's really good. It's a good day. Good day. Appreciate it. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. 29 again is kind of fun. Again and again. Okay. Anyone else in the public that wants to speak? Second time? Third time? Anybody on Zoom that would like to speak? No? Anybody on Zoom? Last chance on anyone on Zoom that'd like to speak. All right, well then we'll move on. Bill, introductions.
Okay, so first of all, I'm Bill Topol. I'm the Director for Human Services, and I want to welcome everybody here. In a moment, I'm going to introduce our newest board member, but I also would like after that, if everybody around the room could go around and introduce themselves as well, so that our new board member knows who's who. All right, so without further ado, we have a brand new board member with us today, Ed Chizorni.
Got it right.
And he is, I was there the night you were appointed to the county board, and congratulations. And he is filling the seat vacated by Jeff Beam. And so, and then I got a notice that you were interested in serving and accepted serving on our board and the Board of Health.
Yeah, I'm up for punishment.
There you go. Yeah, this board is grueling. I can tell you that from experience. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
So welcome. Would you like to say anything, Ed, as far as introduction about yourself?
Happy to be here. Lived in Winnebago County for over 30 years. This is where I'm going to stay. So.
And you're representing Amro.
Right, District 34, which is part of the town of Amro and the whole city of Amro.
Okay. Okay.
But you've got something else that's a specialty as well.
I hang out with you and the rest of the board members.
You know, that's not it. Air.
Oh, yes, I know. I'm an aviation enthusiast, and recently I achieved a milestone with the Experimental Aircraft Association, the Young Eagles program, which introduces kids to flight. I was part of the committee that organized it, put it together, and I am one of 41 pilots from around the world that have flown over 1,000 kids one-on-one.
Wow.
So I hang out at the airport all the time, and then everybody picks on me. I'm the tie-dye guy in the sky. And believe it or not, most of my attire is tie-dye.
Okay.
So, but you know, it's not T-shirts. I mean, it's collared
sure.
dress shirts. Probably more expensive than some other dress shirts.
I was going to ask you, do you make your own? Because back in the day,
yep,
we could make our own tie-dye.
Yes, you could still do that. Actually, there's a woman here in Menasha that I'm going to go see after the meeting that is physically challenged. And it's her business to make tie-dye. So I call her once a month and say, I need a new tie-dye shirt. I go over there and pick one out and pay her for it. And then I spread the word, and she's been able to create a flourishing business.
Wow, fantastic.
So, but that's how she, she wouldn't be able to work any other way. And she has a passion for it. So I admire the woman for doing that. I'll support her in whichever way I can. So I wear tie-dye. But that goes back to the hippie days in the 60s. Let's face it,
Excellent. Okay, well, thanks, Ed. And I told Ed it's probably gonna take him about 2 years to figure out what it is that we're doing. He hopes it'll be shorter than that. Cause yes, he said, well, if I'm not really sure what I'm doing by next month, is that bad? I'm like, no, that's not bad. It's like, take it from everybody else here. It takes a while to figure out all the things that we're into. So let's go around the room, and Ralph, you'll be taking care of it. So,
Yep.
Kay, you want to introduce yourself and where you're
Kay
from?
Horan, County Board Supervisor, District 5, which is, we're sitting in my district right here. So it's the Neenah side of Doty Island, all the way down to the lake on both sides, and then goes down to Division Street. That's my district. I am a mother, a wife, a grandmother of 3 who are very generous with their, with some, well said. Yes.
Sure.
And am learning so much. It is such a joy to work with everybody. Thank you.
I'm Harold Singstock, citizen member of the city of Oshkosh, ex-county board supervisor.
Chris Kniep and Ed, we work together.
Yes, I know.
Ed's a really active member of the St. Raphael Parish, taking a lead role with our fish fries, and I'm the dishwasher on Thursday and
She does a wonderful job.
take out for Friday. So nice to see you here.
We'll see about a raise this year.
Yeah, okay.
I heard that now. I heard that.
And I'm a citizen member of the committee that worked for Winnebago County UW Extension for 33 years.
I'm Heather Faust. I'm the behavioral health manager with Human Services.
So I gotta watch myself around her.
I'm Pam Bartel, Administrative Associate.
Ann Kriegel, Economic Support Manager.
Beth Roberts, Long-Term Support Manager.
And Beatty, Child Welfare Manager.
Becky Nichols, I'm Supervisor from District 2. I sit between Ralph and Ed,
Yes.
County Board, so we're regulars.
We're neighbors.
And the only person who lives closer than me to this building is Kay, so we're practically neighbors.
I'm Mark Weisenso. I'm worked for Winnebago County as a director of aging for 36 years. I retired 4 years ago, I guess it was, Bill. I'm glad to be a member of this group. Welcome.
What was your title?
I'm the director of aging, it was.
The Director of Aging.
There was a
Well, he
director.
was director
Curious
of-
title, I want to
We
know
had
how
a
to
separate
direct
department
aging.
back then. It used to be a separate department. Then
It's merged now, but
It merged.
he was.
Yeah.
It merged with social services, and then it merged with human services. And then it's all one part, and it's much better to have it all as one. Do we all get along?
Right, I'm just fascinated by the title, I want to direct aging.
Directed, okay.
You want to direct your own aging? You want
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody help me to tell me what I do.
Stop.
And my hair went from, this is what my wife says it used to be. When I started out, it was brown, and now it fits the part.
to? Okay, before we move on to you, let's go. Do you want to introduce yourself? Lou?
Hi, Lou Shear. I am the Housing Grant Specialist at Winnebago County.
Who's presenting today.
Yep.
Yep, I'm Renee Sirocco, Deputy Director. Welcome.
And,
Oh,
on the line.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'm Jana Roloff. I'm the manager of administration for Human Services.
And who's the other?
Yeah, that's us.
Well, that's you.
That's
That's the top of your head. Okay, all right. So that's the introduction.
Now to the program.
Yep. And I'm going to introduce, so Lou, would you please come up and maybe take a quarter of that, that'd be good.
You want the next meeting? Okay.
Or you can sit next to Ralph.
Ralph doesn't fight, I promise.
He doesn't?
No.
Oh.
They're 2 years.
And we
So-
still
so-
like each other.
So I want to introduce Lou Shear. She is the program, the health program housing grant specialist for the county. And Lou hasn't been with us.
Since May.
Since May. I was gonna say, it hasn't been a year yet.
No.
It's been about a half a year. And she specifically focused on making sure that the $10 million grant, that the county got from the state, that fund all of the programs from our health program to day-by-day warming shelter,
You're stealing my thunder.
and all of that is, and I'll let her finish the rest of it. She's basically managing it and working with the folks on making sure that the grant is being followed. And on top of that is looking for other opportunities at the county level for housing for folks that may otherwise not fit other categories.
May I ask a question before you start? Did you
No.
by chance do a presentation to the ARPA Commission about housing strategies in Winnebago County?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. I'll
Okay,
connect with
so
you.
that's Lou. Before Lou came to work for us, she worked for many, many years at AvoCap in managing a number of programs. One of them was housing and support for folks there. So she's got a lot of experience. We're very happy to have her. We're very happy that she accepted the position. Right now, it's a project position, which means its lifespan is about 2 years. So it's got a lot of work to do in a short period of time. What happens after that, we're not certain, but that's what it's happening now. But anyway, so Lou's coming to talk to us today about whatever she's got on her list of things to talk about. And I think some of you wanted to hear from her last month or the month before, and it didn't work out, so now she's coming today. So Lou, take it away.
All right. Well, yeah, Bill pretty much summed up what's going on. I've worked at AvoCap for 28 and a half years as the Affordable Housing Director, worked with developing housing there, and also worked with the homeless population and oversaw that for the last 15 years. Prior to that, I had worked for a for-profit developer in Dodge County and worked on housing in 3 different counties in Wisconsin, developing over 1,000 units of affordable housing. And I use the term affordable housing because then we all knew what it meant. We knew that was some sort of low-income housing. We did Section 8 elderly housing was my first big project that we worked on tax credit projects for families and for seniors. And, you know, everyone understood what that was. Now I would challenge each of you to decide what is affordable housing in general. And so that's part of the task. And when John decided, the county exec decided to create this position, he had 3 main focuses in mind. And one of them was to create a work group. I work with over 50 members of the communities in Winnebago County, both at the city level and the county level, but also developers, for-profit and nonprofit organizations that are interested in housing, and financing institutions that can help us get there. And one of the things we're trying to decide is what kind of housing do we need in Winnebago County and how are we going to get there? And right now the focus is what are the barriers to making it happen? So we have a work group together. We've met once and we're having another meeting this month, and then there'll be a substantial increase in meetings now that we've had started the conversation as to what do we need and what some of the barriers are. So my passion is still affordable housing, but it's really, I understand we need $1 million homes. We need people, we need executives who are trying to come to Winnebago County and don't have places to live. But we also know that there's very vulnerable populations, people with disabilities, along with homeless people, along with people with barriers. And the housing crisis isn't just something that's happening in Winnebago County or even in Wisconsin, it's across the United States. And having been around a while, and my hair also shows I've been around a little bit, I've been engaged in at least a dozen different housing studies. And all along, we were supposed to be building more housing and keeping up with the stock. And we're not. We haven't, and we're not. And it's caught up to us in a big, big, big way. And so it's been interesting to have these conversations when the community, and it's more interesting to see people come to the table and say yes. And John's focus, of course, is how can the county help? What can we do? How can we reduce some of the barriers that people are experiencing? So it's been I know a lot, but I'm learning a lot on this job in regards to what has changed. And if you look at housing in the last 4 or 5 years, it substantially has changed. So that's one of the things we're working on. I'm also, as the housing grant specialist, overseeing the $10.3 million that was the city got, or the county got, from the state after an application process, and it does cover 6 major projects, one of them being Covey. They received just a little over $1 million, and they have rehabbed 2 of their properties, and they are building 2 brand new properties to be used for persons with disabilities and finding stable housing for them, both the people who live there and for supportive services for the families. We work with Habitat for Humanity in Oshkosh. They received about $2.5 million. They finished a house on Monroe Street. They finished a house on Bowen Street. They're building 6 houses on Grove Street. And if you haven't been by, you ought to drive by Grove Street and see what a difference it makes to add these 6 homes. And they also purchased 20 lots in Amro. And working with the city of Amro, and they're probably down now to 16 lots due to the retention ponds that they need to put in. And at least 12 of those units will be Habitat, and 4 of those units may be sold off to for-profit developers to create a neighborhood just behind the new Quick Trip. That's what they're doing there. Oshkosh Kids, some of you may be familiar with, built the Tiny House Village on the north end of Oshkosh. The money, a little over $500,000 went for the community center. And that is having been engaged with Oshkosh Kids while I was working at AdvoCap. Its purpose is to house families who have been previously homeless. So each household must have a child. The houses are just under 400 square feet, and they can house up to 4 people. They have 32 units, of which I believe 31 are filled. And so that has turned out, they did it in phases. And so when I made the transfer in May, they had just finished and started occupying 16 units as of February. They started that, and they were up to 8 of those units have been occupied in May. And since that time, they've now gotten to the point of filling those units. It's been a very interesting project, and it's doing exactly what it was supposed to do, and that is providing affordable, safe housing for persons who are required to be working on goals in their own lives, to change their lives. And that the supportive services are provided by the county, provided by other community partners, and by the case management that's on site. And they are learning about healthy relationships, being good neighbors, paying rent, and finding employment, childcare, all the things that are helping them becoming more self-sustaining. Everyone has to be working on goals, and that is a requirement of the project itself. And although I do not believe anyone has graduated yet, the intent is to help people live there for a short period of time, 18 months to 2 years, and then provide them supportive services as they go out into the community. Now that ties very closely with some of the housing shortages we were talking to before. Nobody's getting pushed out, but the hope is that we'll be able to find affordable housing for them at that period of time, help them figure out what were their barriers to being successful before. So it's an all individualized plan. And as I said, it's been very successful, and they are 100% complete at this point. Solutions Recovery received $1.5 million. They have done an expansion, are working on an expansion on their existing building to make it accessible and to make it more usable by the people that they're serving. They also have rehabbed 2 properties that they have, and they're in the process of purchasing a property in February of this year. They should be purchasing where Christine Ann currently is, and Christine Ann will be moving next door to the beach property. So that's something that they're working on. They will be spent out hopefully yet by the middle of this year. Day by Day received the largest grant of almost $3.6 million to complete their project. As you may know, Day by Day was a seasonal shelter previously, 6 months, 25 beds in the basement of a church that was meant to be a couple of years. And I think they were there, was it 11 or 14? I mean, they were there much longer than they wanted to be necessarily, but got the support of the community to build a year-round shelter. They're now at 50 beds. In talking to them today, they are full. They're at somewhere between 47 and 50 people every night. And they have a relatively small wait list in the sense it's less than 20 people. And some of the people on the wait list are still incarcerated. And so they're eligible to be housed. And so they're meeting the needs of the community at the present time. They also are 100% spent out. And then the last one is Winnebago County received 1.2 to do the HELP program, which is homelessness, eviction, and loss protection. They've been very successful, I believe, in over 80%. I think it varies between high 70s and low 80s in keeping people stably housed and or helping people get housing and get stability in their lives. Very individualized program and meeting the needs. What the state was impressed by is kind of a continuum, if you would, of going from the homelessness to helping people get through different housing that's needed and gaps that we had in the community and addressing those needs. So it's been very successful. The Badger Bounce Back has highlighted Winnebago County a number of times. So if you receive that email, they've been doing a lot of highlights on the projects that we are operating. So that's great. The other thing that John focused on was other duties as assigned. And that's the fun part because you don't know what that's going to mean. So part of it was during the transition of day by day, working with them and helping moving along and kind of smoothing over some of the bumps going through there, but also working with other organizations on housing funding as it becomes available, helping them with writing grants and working towards identifying different needs. And one of them right now is the home ARPA funds through the state of Wisconsin has over $20 million for, and we have a couple of shovel-ready projects that we're anxious to get on paper. So meeting this month in regards to seeing if we need more housing for specific groups. That money has to house people who are homeless, giving permanent housing opportunities for people who are currently homeless. And that's certainly one of the gaps that we know is necessary. And so looking at building over 30 units in Winnebago County to help address that. And that again will be more like a voucher system of using Section 8 vouchers to help people maintain and being able to obtain and maintain stable housing in their lives and providing services for that. So that's kind of very excited about those opportunities. As Bill mentioned, it is a program and project based. I do work until the end of December, and as the future of that is kind of unknown. I was retired for 5 days, and so maybe that will happen again. But it's been actually a very great opportunity for me because it fills the passion that I needed in finding housing and identifying the housing needs that we have. And so I use examples of building a house in 2010 for $250,000. That same house would be twice as much now. And would that have been affordable? And my answer would be not to me. That's not what we could have done, but we were able to do that. My neighbors, and I love them dearly, have been there since we've been there. They're in their 90s, and they've made it very clear to me that they're not moving out. The only way they're getting out is feet first, and that living in assisted living is something that they can't afford to do. And so you can see the disruption in the natural flow and movement of housing that we've seen before. But to encourage people to provide all types of housing, the cost is the same, and that's about $210 a foot to build right now, and that's not your land cost or your infrastructure. So that can vary very quickly, of course. So like I said, I'm trying to find that more adaptable word than affordable housing because we don't know how to make that happen. But got some ideas. We got some innovation going on in the communities, and some of your cities have got some great ideas of things they'd like to do. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention one of the things we're trying to get in Winnebago County is some housing for veterans. So that's something that we're also working on with that. I talk fast. I jump around a little bit, but any questions anybody has or anything I can help clarify?
Yes, my family and I moved up here, I guess in about 86, 87.
Okay.
And at that point in time, we came up from the south, and when we came up, one saw a very different dynamic than we have today. But it it all seemed to be middle-class people and upper middle class. When you were speaking, you were talking about 20, 25 years ago, homelessness in the community. So this is not something.
I've been working with homeless populations for most of my time at Advocate for over 28 years. That number in the last 4 years has tripled. The number of homelessness that we're seeing in Winnebago County and Fond du Lac and Green Lake County for that matter. And probably the largest group of people that we're seeing are families. The number of homeless families has increased dramatically, and people over 55. And I'll use the example of I've rented a duplex for Mark for a long time. I was paying $500 for a small 2-bedroom upper, and life was pretty good. And we got along and helped each other out. And I've lived there for over, like I said, over 10 years. And then out of the blue, Mark says, well, we're moving. Sold the house because in the last few years, that market got pretty interesting, right? People were interested in buying my house. They didn't want an inspection. They had cash in hand and they were offering me like more than I ever thought I'd ever get for my house, right? So people sold their properties. Then the new landlord comes in and says, we're going to change this up a little bit and you're going to be charged not $500 a month rent, but maybe $1,100 a month rent or more. And that became unaffordable by people on fixed income. So we're seeing a large group of people who aren't necessarily getting evicted. They're just not having their leases renewed. And so they're having a very difficult time finding housing that's going to meet their needs or their affordability. So there's a lot of people, I think the last statistics I saw nationally was nearly 60 people in the United 60% of the people in the United States are house burdened, meaning they're paying more than 30% of their income towards housing. And when I use the term 30%, but now the banks are looking more at 26%. Everything is kind of switching and changing, right? I looked at a mortgage of $200,000, 30 years at 1.9. Remember those days? Was under $800. Now that same mortgage is over $1,500. How do you get young people into housing the same way? How do you find an apartment that's affordable, right? I mean, it's just a very interesting cycle that we're in. And again, it's not just here. And my degree is actually in business, not in social work or social services. So my mind clicks and says, well, of course, if I can get the money, why aren't I getting the money? Costs are what the costs are. I can't, the roof, to repair the roof, I can't do that for $20,000 anymore. That's gone up. I can't find anybody who's going to help me repair all these damages. I got to pay for that. I understand the economics of it, but we have people who are living on $800 or less a month. And where are they living? Where are they going to go? What are we going to do? And that's the population, as I said, the most vulnerable. I'm not too worried about the $1 million homeowners. I think they've got that figured out. And I think there's plenty of people and builders who are interested in developing housing. And I'm not too worried about that, but I am worried about that middle class, that missing middle is what they're calling it, right? So, the house that you bought, I bought my first house in 1984. We paid $19,500 for it at an auction. I paid 14.5% proudly because I could get credit. I had credit, but that was a whole different world, right? But I also bought a 990 square foot Cape Cod on a very small lot. Now that same house couldn't be built in most communities because of zoning and code laws. But when we bought it, it was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, eat-in kitchen, and a small living room. Everybody knows what a Cape, we've all been there, right? We all knew somebody who had one of those. When we left, it was 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath with a family room in the basement. And, we made a tidy sum on it. But not like I would have liked, if this happened in the last 3 years. But, those houses aren't available anymore. Are people even interested in that? But if we build it, will they come? Real estate agents assure me that if we built 1,200 square foot houses, people would buy them. If you've been staying at Airbnbs, you'll find that they're often under 1,000 square feet or standalone buildings, right? But the open design makes it very welcoming and looks much larger, windows, tall ceilings, all of those things play a part. How do we change people's mindsets? And more important, how can I build it at a price that people can buy? that they can afford it at.
Do you find anything with opportunity zones? And when I say that, it seems like prospective buyers who have the opportunity to get involved with opportunity zones come in, buy something like over on the west side of Main Street in Neenah, and by the time that building is built, the rent is so much. You sit there and you wonder, how is that an opportunity zone?
I'm old enough to remember that when they built those types of housing, people moved up. They sold their homes and they decided they wanted to live in apartments, or I was living in a smaller, more affordable apartment and I could move. And I took that advantage, and that allowed those lower units to be opened up, those lower price units. That's not happening anymore. No. Affordable rents just aren't. I mean, look at the tiny houses. I'll go to those. They list as 2 bedrooms, and fair market rent for a 2-bedroom in Winnebago County now is $1,043. So, I mean, you know, that's a hefty mortgage for a lot of people, right? I mean, that's a reasonable mortgage. Talking to real estate agents, if you buy a house for under 150 in Oshkosh right now, you better be checking a lot of things. There's going to be a lot of work necessary, and can you find contractors to get the work done? It's just an interesting dynamic. So we have to figure out, and there are different communities who are doing different things. And when I spoke to the ARPA Commission, that was one of the things we talked about, is providing assistance to people by cutting out some of the profit things. So you have a developer, you have a builder, you have a real estate agent. All of these people are making money. One of the neighboring counties to us is doing that, where one nonprofit is doing all of those things and cutting down some of the profit for that, and then providing up to $40,000 of down payment assistance that's then repaid after their mortgage is repaid or after they sell the property at zero, a low percentage rate, but it's helping people get into homes. But they also received a number of they had 4 organizations in Sheboygan County that each ponied up $2 million to help with that project. And the idea was that 80% of the new houses have to be sold to persons who do not live in Sheboygan County but want to come there and work. They have 2,000 jobs that pay over $30 an hour, no high school diploma required. So that's what they're doing and if 2 people are working those jobs, they can afford the $270,000 house. So it's an interesting concept. So we have over 1,000 jobs in Winnebago County, but our average payment is not quite at $30 an hour, it's closer to 22. So we got to adjust accordingly, figure that out, because the cost of construction doesn't change from Sheboygan County to Winnebago County. It's still about $210 a foot, but they still have to be able to afford the mortgage. So we're looking at ways of how to do that.
$310 a square foot?
$210.
$210, thank you.
But that's a cost of construction, not of land.
Yeah.
So your lot is above and beyond that.
Any other questions? I'm sorry.
So great to see you.
It is. It is.
And a perfect fit for this job, and
Thank you.
just listening to you. But one of the things that I hear people talk about, they don't buy a starter house, they buy a forever home. You heard them? And they buy these high end ones because they'll never move up. But that's a whole different mindset, because we were at 14% too in 1984 going,
Right.
That's what you did. But when I see the development in Oshkosh, and that's the area I see the most, it's downtown rehabbing buildings that look like they should have been bulldozed over. Are they going to be affordable? Are those units being built for affordability?
Well, there's some that are kind of geared that way.
Okay.
And we also have some developers, and I'll say this in the kindest way, who've made their money and who are willing to invest in people again, right? Who are willing to not have to get. But we also have a property that is, there are 2 condos in a 3-story building in downtown Oshkosh that are selling for over $800,000 for each unit. Again, not affordable by me, not on the water, but there's people who apparently that's good. That'll work for them, and that, it's the way it goes. Like I said, affordable to me is such a broad subject now, because affordable by whom, right? I mean, if you're one person is working, but if you have a fireman coming in or a beginning teacher who are making $50K a year, yikes, what can they afford? right? And they can't find the rent either. Some of the things that make me giggle, but not giggle really, is we don't want those large rental units on the west side of Oshkosh. We don't want those people here. Well, those people are building a fence around that property to keep you out, not keep you, it's, I mean, the rents there are going to be pretty high. I mean, over 2,000 for a 2-bedroom unit. Now I don't know how people can afford it.
Is homeownership a goal anymore?
For some, but still.
I mean, that used to be the American dream. Do you find that?
Absolutely.
Is it still? in
Well,
your
and
opinion?
there's discussion on that nationally, that young people, they have no interest in that. They want balance. They want to be able to live someplace and be able to travel and do all these other things. And keeping a house and maintaining a house isn't necessarily their goal. But people are still raising families and still, we still have a very strong Midwestern value here. I think we still have a lot of young people. They just want to live where they can live and afford it. Right? But I do think that they like the new designs, the open concept, as I think there's a lot you can do with that to create a small space looking larger that could appease a lot of the needs of people, but still try to keep it affordable.
Super effort with the continuum of housing. Thank you.
It's interesting. It's very interesting.
Anybody else?
Can you talk about the difference between low income, market rate, and affordable housing? We're sort of getting into that word salad, right?
So we got days?
Here's, so I, in addition to my role on the county board, I'm also on city council in
Oh,
Menasha.
sure.
And
Okay.
so a lot of market rate apartments
Uh-huh.
have come online. Oftentimes, market rate gets associated with low income, and then all of the baggage that comes with the term low income gets thrown in that bucket.
Mhm.
And so and I agree, what I see as affordable, what is defined as affordable, there's a big question. Is there really affordable? When I think about my house, we couldn't buy our little 1,100 foot square house. That's 100 years old and a Sears Roebuck catalog home. We couldn't buy that now. So there's a lot of things that get thrown into
Absolutely.
the bucket. So could you just help me just
Quickly.
unpack that quickly?
Okay, affordable housing by definition, I believe to be Section 8 vouchers. Okay, so where people are paying 30% of their income towards rent, and then there's a voucher, there's a backup program that's paying the difference. So if rent is and for affordable, it has to be at fair market rent, which is set by HUD. Okay, HUD sets that up. So as I said, it's $1,043 right now for a 2-bedroom. All I can afford is $300 a month. Someone, being Section 8, being HUD, or being some program, is paying the $743 to the landlord. So the landlord is getting their $1,043 no matter what. What landlords have figured out is that if I do that, that has to include utilities, but I could rent it for $1,100 without utilities to you. So why would I mess with that? Why would I go through the inspections? Why would I do that? But affordable in theory is where somebody would pay 30% or less of their income towards all housing costs. Market rate, Section 42, tax credit projects, they will rent up to 80% of county median income. A rough number in county median income for a family of 2 in Winnebago County is $75,000 a year. So you're paying approximately 27% or 30% of your income for market rate. And so that's a little bit higher. I've been around long enough that we had 101 units of elderly housing in Beaver Dam on the lake. It was beautiful. It's brand new. And of the 101 units, 98 of them were widowed women whose husbands had worked on the farm and didn't have Social Security. So they were paying a pretty fair amount of their income towards their rent. Now people fortunately have, 401ks and retirement and different options. A lot of people do, I shouldn't say everyone, but that changed that dynamics quite a bit, right? But we know there's still people living on Social Security. And, you know, it isn't that much. We used to have my youngest son was living with us for a number of years because he was working in the area and, you know, being parents, or how can we help you grow? So we had 3 people making, you know, providing food, energy costs, everything for till 2 years ago when he moved out. My cost for my utilities hasn't gone down. It's actually gone up, although my usage has gone down. That's confusing, right? My food costs haven't gone down, and my husband and I aren't eating any better or eating any different, right? I mean, it's just the cost of living is just changing. But housing being that substantial piece that we all need to stabilize the rest of our lives has gone astronomical. I mean, it's crazy what's happened to rents. And of course, with the interest, like I said, it's making a huge difference in who can afford long-term on a mortgage with the cost of housing. So the cost of housing is pretty much leveled off. I mean, it's not quite as crazy as it was 2 years ago, but looking at where real estate was a year ago compared to now, houses are on the market for maybe 3 or 4 more days, still under 60 days, about 35 days is the average stay on market. But people aren't necessarily offering those ridiculous $50,000 over asking price. That's not, I think real estate agents caught up to good numbers, and I think people are still, but if you're pre-approved and you're pre-approved for under a $200,000 house, your pickings are slim, very slim. And like I said, the natural rollover of housing just isn't happening because of the uncertainty. You know, when my husband saw what we could sell our house for, the first thing he said to me is, honey, it's time to sell. And I said, okay, dear, where shall we live?
Where are we going?
Yeah, and when we started looking at houses, living in Waupun, a small community, my house would sell for $100,000 more in Oshkosh and or in Fond du Lac. We found that out because we started looking at houses comparable to ours, and that's what the costs were there. So, I mean, it's like, right?
You can't buy anything.
Right,
Yeah.
you just
Yeah.
can't move, so. And downsizing wasn't the issue, it's just I'd be paying as much as why do I want to pay that kind of money? I mean, you know, but. So it's just a very interesting dilemma that we find ourselves in, but how do we motivate developers to build? How do we get them going? How do we cut some of the time it takes to go from conception to moving in? Some developers have owned land for 24 months and the holding costs are added to the cost of the project, which adds to how much are they charging me at the end? How do we streamline this? So those are some of the things, the tasks that we're trying to work on to figure out.
I have a question about that.
Sure.
I've been in Oshkosh for 56 years, but it seemed like the last 20, 25 years, there was a lot of low income, but they used that to get loans around Oshkosh, and they took old areas right off of Main Street, built brand new apartments that was supposed to be based on low income deals.
Mhm.
And then as the years went by, they got selective and the low income stuff went bye-bye. And they're not anywhere near what they set up. There's like, I know there's 6 or 7 of them right now in town that start out that, and I'm watching now, some are 2,500, 1,500. That was nowhere near, you know, and I had friends that tried to rent from right off of Main Street. Originally, they were 700 or 800, now they're 15 and they're really picky. So, you know, you're trying to hit this one area, which is not hitting it that way. So that kind of got me, and now I know, and I don't know if you know, or maybe you do, there is different companies now that from out of town. There's one I know particularly in Fond du Lac that's done it with churches and taken old places and build them and change them into low income. Again, got special grants from. But now I think they're trying to do it here in Oshkosh. But are they really gonna do it? I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I just feel that some of them are getting the deal on the loan. But following up on, are they really helping us or are they not? And you might know that. Okay.
Yeah, I can fill you in on a couple of things. You're talking about tax credit projects in theory. Most tax credit projects start at 60% of county median income, meaning you have to earn or can't earn more than 60% to 80%, and then there's market rate. The affordability period that's tied to that financing is 15 years, and they can be sold out at 10. So they serve a purpose for a short period of time.
Yeah.
So the investors are getting, because the tax credits I'm selling to you, so you could take the credit on your taxes, but you want an investment, a return on your investment. So the quicker we can turn that over, the faster that happens, right? So as soon as the developer can get out, he's usually getting out, making sure that you as an investor get paid out what you need to get paid out, so you'll buy into my next project. You're specifically talking about Commonwealth, and I've worked with Commonwealth a number of times, and they're looking at a project on North Main Street in Oshkosh. What I like about their project is that they have units set aside for 30%, meaning you cannot make more than 30% of county median income. And for one person, that's less than 20K a year. Okay, so that starts touching more vulnerable people, people that we would work with in health and human services specifically. So at one time, they were talking about 18 units of that, then 18 units at 50%, which again is a little bit lower, and then another 15 or 18 at 80%, and then just a very few market rate. What they're doing in that project is also providing 2-shift daycare. Is kind of their claim to fame, which fills another gap in the community, right? So that's kind of the hope there. They do a great job at startup, but it's a very short, limited term of time that they will remain. Section 8 projects, your public housing has a far longer, what they call affordability period, how long they have to keep it affordable. So that's a little bit different.
I'm concerned about that, yeah.
Winnebago County has over 400 housing vouchers that they use, and they're all being used. So they're finding more landlords who are using those vouchers along with the buildings that you're familiar with that Winnebago County owns, houses and multi-family housing.
Is there any more building going on where, I mean, I always just go to buy the tower. I don't know what the rent is for the tower building, but there are a lot of people that are.
Again, they get what's fair market rent based on the size of the unit, but I only pay, as a tenant, I only pay 30% of my income. So that might be different for me than it is for you. And then the HUD vouchers fill in that gap so that the housing authority gets. But they are also a nonprofit, and they also are limited on how much they can, but they have reserves. Filling an elevator these days, my gosh, right? That goes to heck. What do you do? That's a big bill.
The other question I asked, and this is kind of off that track, because you're taking care of the homeless grant. Okay? And being on the county board, there's always rumors of people say that where the money's going, what they're doing with the money today. And I just had a little concern because they do a lot with day by day. And I love the place, they do a lot. But I was really surprised that recently that, was going to be for people to stay during the day. And now they've gone to, people can stay there 30, 60, and 90 days. And they're turning away people for daily. So they don't do what they said they did in the beginning. So I just wondered, that's, people are asking me, that's not what they're doing. Why are they doing something different than they got the grant for? That's all I'm asking.
The grant was for the purpose of building a shelter. Shelter's been built. We are providing shelter. The concern, and I was on that boat, right? How many people are not going to get housed? What are they doing? I'm not going to say comforted, but it's good to hear that right now their waiting list is pretty minimal. People they are turning away. The problem is that Fond du Lac built a shelter for both families and singles, right? They have over 300 people, including families with children, on their wait list, and they're 100% occupied. Pillars has a wait list in northern Winnebago County, because they do have housing in Winnebago County and of course out of Gamey County. They have over 300 people on their wait list. So interestingly, sometimes there's a knock at the day by day that says, hi, this guy just got out of jail at 3 o'clock this morning. We're going to turn him in here. Or he just was released from the hospital. And I mean, I kid you not, discharge brings them there in their hospital gowns without their medication and says, would you please house them? And it's never been their purpose, but it's what they're doing. Right now, they are working again on a reserve bed sort of situation. They're meeting the needs of the community. The faith-based is starting at their own, what are we going to do when this gets filled? Because I'm not suggesting it won't. My bigger concern in Winnebago, the greater Winnebago County area, is we do not have a family shelter. We only have shelters for singles. Fathered Cars is not a shelter. It is a program, right? COTS is a program. So day by day is meeting the needs. They say people have been on the wait list, who have been on the wait list, have been on the wait list for less than 10 days. I asked their operations director for some stats on how many people they've gotten permanently housed. Originally, they had from the original 50 people that had moved in, they had less than 15 that were still there, meaning that 35 had found other housing or had moved on. So there's successes that are happening along the way. Right now, I will tell you, they're meeting the needs of the community. There are some people who don't want to live there. There are some people who don't want to follow the rules. They don't want to be there at a certain time. They don't want to live in a sober capacity. But when they're ready to accept them. So I understand it looks different, but you have to remember they went from 25 to 50 and they went from part-time to full-time, meaning 365. And they're also providing and now starting to step up their programming to a meaningful level. During, I think when they opened May, is that when they opened full-time? And so it's a growing process. It's moving forward with that. So they have, if I decide that, hey, we've just met on the street and I think I'm going to spend some time with you for a while, and I don't show up for a couple of days, I relinquish my bed. And then that's open to the next person who's on the wait list. They reach out and contact people by phone and tell them you're the next on the wait list as soon as we have an opening. So people are on deck, if you will, they know. But they also found that people were being told, people would show up from Milwaukee saying, you're the only people that have, who have this lottery. I'm here because I can't get a bed in Milwaukee, or I can't get a bed in another county, right? So that became its own problem. Over 90% of the people they serve are from our general area or have some sort of ties to Winnebago County. So they're still serving a need.
That was my next question, 90%, because I thought now that we have all these benefits now that people are coming from all over to do it here, but you said 90%, so they're
Yes.
not really.
Not really. It's not really. And for my history of working with the homeless populations, everybody's like, well, people, we live on the 41 corridor. There's no denying that, right? There's travel up and down from Milwaukee, Chicago area to Green Bay. And it doesn't say that it doesn't go west, because we know it also goes west, right? But we're familiar with this. And what we found is that people who registered as being homeless, there was just as many people coming as there were leaving. Meaning they receive services somewhere up the corridor, then ultimately the last service they received were back in Milwaukee and Chicago. Because they didn't find the jobs, they didn't find the housing, they didn't have the supports here, they were unfamiliar with really what to do next. They tried. They end up going back. A lot of them end up going back. So it's a migrant sort of migration, I always say it that. But there is a tracking system, a database in the state of Wisconsin that anyone who's registered as homeless goes into that database every night they're in shelter or whatever. So you can kind of see the history of people who've been on the street.
Good. Anybody else have any questions? I appreciate it. I mean, I learned a lot. I don't know if everybody else, I learned a lot that I didn't know about stuff areas, so that was really informative. So I really appreciate it.
Great, thank
Appreciate
you.
what you do.
Thank you.
All right. So now we go to number 4. Do I hear a motion to approve our minutes from December 4th?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Oh, second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? No. That passed. Number 5 is, do I hear a motion to accept the minutes from December 11th for the ADRC?
So moved.
Can I make one comment before we accept those? In your paperwork today, there was a revised, there was a little bit of wording different in the highlighted section that everybody received
Okay.
from what I emailed or mailed you. I don't remember. I think I emailed it. But just wanted to point that out. It's just a little bit of wording differences in there.
You don't have to do anything to get that accepted.
You just approve,
Just approve
or
it.
accept that, or not approve, accept that as.
Okay. So do I say we
I'll
did.
move that we accept it as amended.
Okay, seconded. Second, I'll second it, that's okay. All approved? Anyone? All favor?
Yeah.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Good, we're on to that. Now, let's see here.
No, there's a September 12th advisory committee too that you guys.
Oh, the other one, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
okay. Do I hear accept the minutes from September 12th of the AC Children's Voluntary Service Meeting? Anybody?
Move to accept the minutes.
Okay, second. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? No. Sorry about that. Should be done. You got it. Next is our inpatient institutional placement statistics.
Okay, so this is it's a two-pager. It's got graphs here, and very familiar to people who've been here a long time. Basically, what we started to do many years ago was to start to track our very expensive placements as one of our statistics and ways in which we can show how we're doing with our high-cost placements. And these are in different areas, and I'll explain them, their initials, what they're for. But the first page is CW Division, which stands for Child Welfare Division, Juvenile Corrections. And what that is representing is how many kids do we have in long-term, essentially juvenile prison placements up in Lincoln Hills, Copper Lake, which is north of Wausau. In what city is it near? Wisconsin. And we have not had placements up there for girls or boys for quite a few years, up until last year. We had our first one in quite a while, and we are currently at 0.7.
He left. Well, he
So
left that.
basically, we had one and then left, so then that brings down so it represents one or less than one per month. Means if it's less than one per month, which it is now, it means that our person has left, so we didn't pay for all those days in a month. So we do it by how many people per month in that particular placement. And cost-wise, right now, it's about $1,500 a day. And that is something that's required for us to pay. We get a little bit of reimbursement back from the state, but not anywhere near $1,500 a day. So all of that's on levy. So we try very hard to not have those placements, and we've been very successful. I think when I got here in 2007, we were averaging somewhere between 5 and 10 kids per month in Lincoln Hills. So we have been very successful in our community-based programming. And so now with that person leaving, is that person going to be out totally then? So we're going to have 0 again? Or okay, so we'll start to see zeros again at Lincoln Hills, Copper Lake, which is great. Okay, second one, which is the bottom, is Child Welfare Division Residential Care Centers. And the one example I use all the time that most people in Wisconsin know is Rawhide. So everybody in this room has probably heard of Rawhide, started by, or spokesmen were Bart and Cherry Starr for many, many years. Rawhide still exists in New London, still has a lot of kids placed there. It is only one of 13, I think, 10 or 13 different RCCs, residential care centers around the state of Wisconsin. Rawhide is the most famous, of course. And we track our numbers of kids that we place in. Those residential centers are not locked. They don't have fences around them. They are capable of being walked away from, but they are placements for kids that go on for typically months and or years. And the theory of those centers are that if they're in a different environment and they're there for a long enough period of time with people who care about them and get the services they need, that somehow they will have their situation fixed and then be able to return to their families and everything will be fine. Historically, we don't find that to be true, but we still have to place kids there if their situation warrants it, and it's usually by a judge's order that they are placed there. So we don't make the final decision on that. We can request that in lieu of going to Lincoln Hills, Copper Lake, based on the severity of what's going on. But what we try to do is make that stay short and get their kids transition back as quickly as possible, or try to avoid it altogether. So that's why right now our number for November was 2.1. You can see how it kind of ping-ponged around this past year. And you can see our averages from the last 5 years, 6 years, that basically we're a little higher this year than we have been in years past. But that's because we've had a lot of kids who were really pushing kind of severe, typically it's a combination of severe emotional issues with some criminality that kind of jacks them up to that level of care need. If they wouldn't go here, they would end up back actually in Lincoln Hills. So this is, we prefer residential care to Lincoln Hills if at all possible. The other thing that's raising this up is that not all residential care centers in Wisconsin can handle these kids, and therefore we have to go out of state. So these numbers also represent when we have to send kids out of state. We don't like the idea of sending kids out of state, but if nobody in the state of Wisconsin will accept them, we have to send them. So we've had kids in Massachusetts. We have kids in Tennessee. I think we had a kid or have kids in Florida or somewhere. Texas, that's it, southern state. We don't like it because the kids can't have a lot of contact with their families. We try to get them back as quickly as we can. But honestly, until we get residential care centers in the state of Wisconsin that will accept these kids, we're stuck with sending them out of state. And we've told the state, we don't like it, you gotta help us change this. And so far, the state has not really helped us too much with this problem. And it's not just our problem, it's a problem for all the counties in the state. I talked to small counties, and they're sending kids all over the place too. So, and the cost per day is $2,000, $2,500, $3,000. It can be very, very expensive to send kids out of state. So again, we don't want to send them for the cost. We don't want to send them for the loss of contact with their families. We don't want to send them because it's just frankly, too far away. But until we have better choices, we will have to keep doing it. And kudos to Annette and her team that number right now is at 2 and not 10. So, so we're very thankful that we have, and for those of you who are newer, basically we changed our philosophy about a decade ago. And we said, if we build a better array of services locally and we keep kids in their families, in their homes and serve them in their homes, we're going to do better and we're not going to have to place them out. For the vast majority of kids, we serve hundreds of kids, literally 200-300 kids and their families a year. I mean, to have just 2 have to be in residential care and 1 had to be in I mean, that's still minuscule to the number of families that we serve and work with. And it's all goes to the staff. It's not me. It goes to the staff that basically are taking care of these kids locally and the service wraparound, and keeping kids in their families. That's how it works. And we started that a decade ago. And now the state is finally catching on. We're just chuckling about that today, Annette and I. It's like the state's like, why don't you have every kid home? It's like, yeah, we would love to have every kid home. How about you help us with making sure that we can keep kids home, you know, instead of scolding us for having kids that we don't have home. We don't want them out of state. We don't want them out of home. We want them with their families. So I said, it's nice. I told Annette today, it's nice the state's finally come around to our way of thinking, which we've had more than a decade ago, that kids are better when they're in their homes and we can wrap services around them and not send them away because it doesn't fix them. It doesn't work. So anyway, so low numbers. I think we're looking good there on page 1. Page 2, flip the page over and around if it's not right side up. No, it was right side up. Okay, then we go to BH division, which stands for behavioral health. So the other cost center for us is when we have to send adults or children to hospitals for psychiatric admissions when they don't have the ability to pay. The state law, chapter 51 says that the counties will pay the cost of treatment up front. So whatever that is, we pay for it and then we try to recoup that over 20, 30 years, if we can, the cost of their psychiatric inpatient stay. Psychiatric inpatient stays now are anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 a day. So the good news about stays are usually they're 10 to 14 days or less, although sometimes we get people that stay for months and we'll talk about that down the road as to why that happens. But if you look at the November number, it was 1.9 for adults. That's the top. The top bar is the adult admissions. And again, you can see the ping pong ball effect of what happens over months there. And then the bottom chart is kids in psychiatric placement. And that number is 1.0 for the month. So again, when I started here, we probably had, again, adults in hospital admissions, probably greater than 10. We had kids somewhere between 3 and 5. So again, we are doing things correctly, in my opinion, because we're keeping the numbers down generally overall. So we're trying our best to not have people go to hospitals either. But as you know, the mental health problem in the country is very serious. And many of these cases represent people that just, we don't know, that have a psychiatric admission, and then we have to cover the cost of that. Anybody comes from a different county or a different state and they end up in our psychiatric facilities, we end up covering the first 3 days. And then if it's another county, we can turn it over to them and they can start paying for it. If it's out of state, we have to go through something called interstate compact. And that takes months, sometimes years, for us to get reimbursement from another state for somebody who ended up here. Maybe they were visiting relatives and they had a psychiatric incident and they had to be hospitalized. They don't have the ability to pay, we pay it. So that's where we're at with that. So that's why we have to have a lot of reserve funds for that.
Just one question, and you probably told me this many times, like 7 times.
Okay.
But I was looking at March and June, March and July, both categories were pretty high. I mean, what happened in the summertime? People were a little off as opposed to now being so much.
Yeah, we usually see a spike in spring. This year, I think it was a little bit later than what we normally would see. So actually, suicide rates are typically higher in springtime. This year, it was just a little bit later, so.
It really, I can tell you from looking at these charts and working in this area for over 30 years, that basically there isn't any rhyme or reason. Some people used to say, it's a full moon. The full moon does it. And I'm like, yeah, sometimes, but sometimes it doesn't. It's like as reliable as the Farmer's Almanac. Some people will say the Farmer's Almanac is really reliable, and sometimes it's accurate. What was the other predictor that I heard recently on the news? Nostradamus. Nostradamus came up. It's like Nostradamus says it's going to be X, Y, and Z this year. And I'm like, man, he's a pretty good predictor. He's been dead for like 400 years or something. I don't know. So I don't know what the answer is. I think I would tell you that springtime, we tended to see an uptick in the springtime because, and this was really weird because as the weather's getting nicer, it's sunnier out, people have a more positive disposition because winter's over. I used to get really happy when it was spring, but I can't tell you how many people would get more depressed and suicidal in the springtime. And I don't know the answer for that either, but it seemed kind of paradoxical that, just when some of us are feeling better, other people are feeling worse. But I can tell you, what? I don't know that it has to do with the weather. I don't think it has to do with the almanac. I just think it has to do with, people in their life situations and what's going on. And sometimes people are very suicidal, but they don't act on it. Sometimes people don't appear to be very suicidal, and then they do. I mean, it's very hard for us, even in the mental health field, those of us who've been practicing a lot of years, it's hard to say why people actually end up trying to hurt themselves one time when they could be talking about it 10 other times and nothing really amount from it. So I don't know. The answer is we don't know the reason.
Gotcha.
And that's why the averages, if you can see from year to year, we can show you the averages for a year, but that average you can see in a given year always goes up and down, depending on whatever's happening. And I'm just thankful when the number's going down as opposed to the numbers going up, because we only budget a certain amount every year for what we have in there. So I like to see the number that we budgeted be higher than the actual average that we're having. So in the kids, we're doing okay too. I don't see anything unusual there. It bounces around, but they're very low numbers. Okay, third page, which is CW division, again, is child welfare and it's secure detention. And this is we had a juvenile jail, which is meant for kids to be in for 30 days or less. When I say we have a juvenile jail, I mean Fond du Lac, because Winnebago County doesn't have one. And we contracted with Fond du Lac County for 4 beds, and our utilization in November was 3.9. So basically, we were paying for all the beds that we were using. So that's good. Historically, we've been a little bit lower than 4, but we have to contract for 4 or none. So basically, we guessed right last month that it was 4 beds. So.
How come Fond du Lac does what we do? I mean, just a quick answer. I'm just wondering why.
The sheriff never opted to create a juvenile detention facility in addition to the jail. Because it's the sheriff basically saying we want to have a juvenile detention or we don't. And I don't know, long before I got here, I don't know that Winnebago County's ever had a juvenile.
No, we used that in gaming prior to and Outagamie shut down. And we went to-
For a lot of years, we did Outagamie because they had one, and then we shared with Outagamie, and then they quit.
It's not like that for a long time.
Paula's had it for quite a long time.
Did they have more juvenile issues or?
They just chose to do it. They just chose to do it.
Choose to, and then having us contract is what helps them to keep going.
How many beds do they have there total for
I think
everybody?
they have 16 beds total.
And we have 4.
We have 4.
So it's run almost like an adult jail, but with more corrections officers, and it's a little less, they still have a jail cell they sleep in every night. I've seen them. But during the day, they can get out into a common area. They have some school stuff that they do. It's a little more accommodating for kids. It's not necessarily more friendly looking, because it's still, you're in a jail. But it's a little bit more open and they can do more stuff during the day. So they're there for typically less than 30 days. And so we have to track those separately, and our average in November was up a little bit, but I don't think it's not past our budget, so we're fine.
What would happen if we did move to,
What's that?
what would happen if we ever did move above 4?
Oh, we can go as high as we need to.
Oh, okay,
They just won't guarantee us beds beyond that.
got it.
And there's other jails we could go to as well, or juvenile detention centers. There's one in Point, there's one in
Washington County.
Washington County. So there's other ones around. We don't like to use those because it's farther away and
Closer to the family.
yeah, closer to family. Okay, on the bottom of the page is Child Welfare Division foster care. And we've been tracking those numbers for years. This is the lowest number of kids in foster care. But if you look at the very next page, which is the one on the very back, that's the number of kids in kinship placement. So the very lowest level of placement that we have are either placing a child out of their home with their like kin, which we call kinship care. But you can see there's a lot of numbers of kids there, 140. And then if they don't have like kin that we can place them with, then we try for foster care, which is somebody that isn't their kin, but is licensed to be a foster care receiving home. And if you're like kin and you're going to have your relatives for a while, you can apply to also be a foster home. So you can, for kinship care, you get less payment per month, but you don't have all the rules and regulations of foster care. If you want to be a foster care provider, you get a higher rate of payment, but you have to adhere to a lot more rules, being a foster placement. So.
Yes, of course, I've got a question.
Okay.
As I'm driving around the community,
Mhm.
I'm noticing foster care signs.
Hopefully they're from Winnebago County.
Are we recruiting?
We're always recruiting.
Yeah,
And so
that
are
might-
there's
Yeah.
other child placement agencies, which are private agencies who do foster care. So they're recruiting too, like Foundations has a lot of signs up. But we are always recruiting, because a lot of foster parents want just babies, and a lot of our kids are teenage, sometimes naughty, traumatized children.
Thank you.
Yeah. Everybody thinks that the county does all the foster care, but we don't. There's a lot of private agencies that do foster care too. And we happen to have a few of them in our county, and we don't really do anything with them. We don't even really know who's in there, do we?
No, unless we use one of those homes, but we wouldn't, no.
Private agencies can license anywhere in the state, but with us being in the county, we can only license folks in our county.
Okay.
And one dumb question again. I see we always have the budgeted amount and then how we're doing it up and down.
Right.
But do we have a goal other than I know we want 0, we don't want to have any kids, but I never see anything when we talk about a goal. Like, we're trying, just take that last page, 140, we have 40 there, another that's 180. We tried to get to 90%, or do we have anything? I never saw anything there, but I don't, maybe I'm missing it.
No, we have like goals within, like what percentage of kids we want to be placed with family, people they know. Like we have internal goals that way. It's far lower, it's like a 35% is where we're at, in percentage wise, but we, continue to work at.
I can tell you, the overall goal is to not have anybody placed anywhere. That is always the overall goal.
Right, yeah.
The second goal is if we have to place them somewhere, place them with their like kin. So to me, I will tell you the answer is, when I see this number high on the back page, that is the least expensive and best place for kids to be besides their home of origin. So our goal is have them at home or have them on this page. And then as we go up the line, have them in, you know, these shorter term placements first before the longer term. But I mean, when you say you have a goal, it seems like we would have control over how do we get them there. And the short answer is I can't have a goal where none of the things are in my control to get them there. Like, you know, so it's not like we can do certain things and then they will go there. It's basically, you know, place them and see if we can get them home and get them home as quickly as possible. So our goals are kind of different than we want a certain number to be in a certain place. Not really. We just want people
It's
to,
safe.
we want people out of our caseload.
You want
That
kids
that is
safe.
our
Right,
goal.
right, that's
Let's
right.
get them home, let's get them placed, let's get them back together and out.
And there's one that's not in here, just for you to know that, like, when we've talked about that before, this family. So there's also a placement with family and we're out. So like, they're not in here because it isn't something that we're supporting, but there are times when we find family that's safe, we stay available for a little bit, and then we want to get out. Our goal is to get out of these people's lives safely, but we don't parent very well as a system, so we want to get out and let them do it as a family.
Can you define kinship?
Kinship is actually going to be defined differently by the legislature in the next couple of months. Because kinship used to be very narrowly defined by, you know, who is like a father, a mother, a brother, a sister, an aunt, an uncle,
First cousin, second cousin.
and first cousin, second cousin, and then it ended. Okay? And so now there's a bill at the legislature that if it passes in the next couple of months, which we are in support of as counties, is to define kinship as any blood relative or any like kin. So you could be a neighbor who has had the kids over at your house since they were, you know, 2 years old. And we will define you as like kin and we will be able to get you some on kinship care. And so if you're gonna help us, you know, with that child's placement, we can then support you. Right now, we can't. Even if you were the closest person in that person's life, because all their other relatives are scattered around the country, but you have had like every week contact with them and you're the best person to take them, we can't support you in any way.
Now,
You know,
when
but
you
that
say,
definition could grow.
excuse me, when you say support, does that mean
Financial
financial support, or does it mean
and
the
recognition legal.
community support as far as health and well-being?
Right, I mean, in terms of legally what we can do, they need to be on kinship for us to support them financially with the kinship dollars that we get from the feds and also in us opening that case up and being available. However, I would say to you, our county helps people, I mean, one of our best placements is a teacher that took placement of this kiddo and now is their guardian. And that was, we weren't able to support her financially. We did voluntarily work with them and help support them and keep it open. So this county is amazing that we do whatever it takes. But that's not somebody that you see in these numbers because it didn't fit under kinship.
Sure. Bill, do you think that bill will pass? That's in the
Yes,
legislature?
it's got a lot of support. Things have just been slowly going through the legislature this session, but we expect it's gonna pass.
Bipartisan,
Yep, bipartisan support. So,
that may have been what I was reading about.
yeah, so that's gonna be exciting. It's gonna be great for all the counties in Wisconsin. But and that said, we can do stuff voluntarily, but there's also limits to what we can do too. So if they're not really a blood relative, we got some limitations. In this case, the one she's talking about, the teacher agreed to help out. We could do it voluntarily. We could do some things, but then she became guardian, then we can do a whole lot more. So it's, you know, we're limited when that definition is so restricted.
Sure. Thank you, Bill.
That's my report. Any questions other than that?
All right. Okay. Now, next would be Janet from
Zoom.
Zoom.
Janet, you're gonna do the financial for us?
Yep, I can do that. So you should have a one-page report this month. It's a little shorter. I just got back to work yesterday. I was off for a few weeks with knee surgery. So that's also why I'm working from home right now. So The notable thing on the report based on November financials is that our surplus number that we're projecting now is about 3.5 million. It jumped about $1 million from last month. The reason is we got our WIMCR reimbursement in December. WIMCR is the Wisconsin Medicaid cost reporting that we do every year. And we've talked about the fact that we don't know how the state calculates the amount we're going to get. So we had budgeted 1.15 million and we actually received 2,109,000. So it was significantly more than we had anticipated. So that kind of accounts for the jump in the surplus projection. This will be the last report you get for the next couple of months while we're entering into the phase of doing our year-end closing processes. We don't have good final December numbers until we go through a lot of systems and getting our final bills paid and getting our final grant revenue and all of that kind of thing. So generally, we don't have a good number until about March. So we'll be giving you a year-end report in April. And then in May, we'll start up with our regular monthly reports because we will have 1 quarter of activity for 2024. So that's kind of the long and short of it for this month. Happy to answer any questions.
Let me just add while you're thinking of questions. So just a little layout here. Actually, Janet has a couple of other sheets too that just aren't available this month. But we basically track labor, travel, capital, and operating. Those are our expense areas. And then that's what you see here, how are we doing it at all of those. And one of the things that she's mentioned in other months is that our labor is over for the year. And we anticipated that because we didn't get any new funds put in when all of those salary adjustments were made back earlier in the year. And that's the way that administration wanted it, was to basically track how much we would end up being under or over for the year. And then they're going to make that adjustment with those funds because of the new wage study increases. That's why that one is over. The rest of them, I think, are under. So just to say something a little bit too more about the levy impact and the 3.4 now that we're estimating, that may or may not change. So we're always about 3 months behind in terms of what we get for our expenses. And so we can't really give you a today, what is it going to end up looking like for the end of the year? Janet does her best forecast and is forecasting about 3.5 in surplus left over that will go back to the general fund. It may be a little less if we had extra expenses in November, December that we're not aware of at this point. But it is something that we do is we try to tell you what we think the forecast is going to be for the end of the year. And Janet had just got done telling you that we don't really have good numbers for you on how we're doing for 24, probably until about April, even May of this coming year. So our reports are going to be a little less available to you from month to month right now because we are kind of finishing up the year. And I just wanted to mention that, just a little further explanation for our new members, why this is happening and why we don't have, we can see day to day, we can see what's in the accounts. We just don't know exactly how we're going to end up, for the end of the year until probably the end of March, early part of April. And there's nothing shocking, but I wanted to let you all know there's nothing shocking about this. I'm surprised that still the surplus number is still as high as it is. But that's because there's a lot of federal and state money coming in, and sometimes it's much higher than what we expect. And as I told you many times, I think sometimes the feds realize they have extra money, they give it to the state holds on to it for a few months, realizes they have more money than what they thought they were going to get, and then they pass it to the counties, which I would say is a good thing, that they don't just hold it or let it go and go back, that they pass it on to us. And so I would like to tell you that I believe that surpluses here in this county are not a bad thing. They're a good thing because any surplus goes to the general fund, which then is available to the county board to kind of you guys use as you see fit. You're not bound to use it for human services. You can use it for whatever else you'd like to use it for. And it kind of helps, balance things out, at the county level. So,
That's where I always say, because I want to stay here, but it's reset.
yeah.
Like to keep it here for you guys, so.
Okay.
That's cool. Okay, no more questions, we're all set? So go back to the back page, huh? Back page. Oh, and deputy director, we'll get to the end, yeah.
Hi, so, just a little update for you about, staff positions. As you know, some of you are on the board, have, the expansion of our agency, adding 30 some positions, with a good chunk of that being, positions we absorbed from LSS, the contracted positions, CLTS positions under Beth, and I didn't actually speak to Beth, but, so feel free to jump in, but Bill let me know that you're mostly done hiring, or got them
We
all
are
hired?
now completely done.
Completely done.
Okay, all of the CLTS ones, with the exception of the provider relations, started yesterday. So it was a great group of people who, got together and got all the equipment they needed to hit the road yesterday running, so it's awesome.
So for those of you who don't know, CLTS stands for Children's Long-Term Support. And that's the area where we support kids with intellectual, physical disabilities and their families, with therapies and, other kinds of
Home
supports in their
modifications.
home modifications, things like that. And we need a lot of case managers because there's a lot of kids coming in, and the state has told us no wait lists. So that's why we have to add these staff. And we had some under contract with LSS. They were struggling. We decided to bring them in-house at the end of the year. So
We've had this for a while, right?
we've had long.
Just now we're adding to it, making,
Right.
getting out the
Yep.
coverage.
Yeah.
Yep, because the numbers, the referrals, the
Okay.
families just continue to skyrocket, so we have to have the people that work with families. So, Figuring out space for our growth as well. We're renting a building just down the street here, to add people, because we don't have enough room between here and Oshkosh. So space continues to be an issue. With CW, we promoted one of our existing supervisors to the deputy division manager, so the lovely Annette can get some help with her ever-growing division as well. But then now we gotta backfill that position, and CW, I'm glancing at Heather, but CW continues to be our division with the most vacancies. And as you've heard us say before, we're usually in competition with our neighboring counties. We're trying to hire the same people. And Outagamie is paying a little bit better for at least their social work positions, and so.
But we're better here, so we'll get them.
Yeah, that's our hope. And with BH, Heather, again, with the space, again, is moved some staff over to Warren King, the building right across from the courthouse where our Connect program is, to try to free up some space in the Oshkosh office as she prepares to add more direct service staff as well. Under CCS, Comprehensive Community Services, if some of you remember from the board meeting, what we were trying to do here with these additional positions. Anything else you want to say about that?
We are able to hire the case managers as well. Just looking for psychotherapists. That's tricky because we not only compete with other counties, but we compete with private practice and people being able to do work on their own. So that gets a little trickier.
And one of those positions also was a supervisor. We promoted one of our substance use disorder counselors to be supervisor. So again, same thing, that's great. We really want to promote internal growth. But then now we've got another vacancy, so it's kind of a circle. And you've got some retirements, right?
1.5 positions are retiring in February.
But Ann's been on a pretty good roll about being able to fill her position. Don't jinx it, yeah. And Janet, I haven't touched base with Janet. How is admin? Front of you.
I didn't know she was gonna be on.
Yeah, she was like, what?
She just can't find.
Okay, that's fine.
Sorry, I was having trouble getting my mouse to unmute. We have just one vacancy right now that we're trying to fill, and we're interviewing tomorrow, actually. It's a financial associate on Cindy's team.
And then unusual for me, because I have 4 admin support specialists that report to me directly, and then Paula Way, who is our special projects coordinator. So the rest of Pam's team. So Julene Godey is transferring from our team to Beth's team. She just mentioned her provider relations position still isn't filled. That's because she's waiting to take my person. But again, a very good thing when folks can move around and do something else, and they, especially our good employees, they stay with us, and that's great. But I selfishly am a little sad because now we've got to, restructure and hopefully, get somebody good. And again, like I said, we're often competing, for the same people across counties. Yeah. But other than that, December's was quiet, and I was out quite a bit, so that's about all I got.
I always have a bunch of questions. Thank you, Becky. You don't make me feel like I'm the only one. There are 2 new buildings, the one on Harrison Street and the one up here in Neenah. Are they being staffed?
Yes.
And how many kids are in those locations?
It goes up and down, but the shelter care, and that's responsible for both of them. The shelter care is fully staffed, and the number of kids does vary.
Goes up to 8.
It goes up to 8 kids, and sometimes there's fewer, sometimes, because it's meant to be a 30-day, kind of in and out kind of thing. The group home up on, what's the name of that?
Green Acres.
Green Acres.
Green Acres. We have had our provider, which we thought was going to be stable for us because we don't staff it ourselves. We were working with Family Services, and they gave us notice on November 14th that they were going to be done on December 15th. And Annette protested and did everything she possibly could to get them to consider sticking around longer, because we have another agency that has said that they want to work with us, but they needed until kind of the first quarter, maybe a little bit into the second quarter of next year to take over, because they're coming from the Wausau area. And they said they needed that much time, and Family Services initially said that they would work with us through that period of time, and then recanted. And so we had to hustle up, and Annette found places for 4 of the individuals, because that could be up to 8, but we had 4 in there at that point. So right now they're placed in different locations. Unfortunately, none of which are in Winnebago County.
No, but they're with a provider that's gonna be taking this over, so they have a bunch of.
So they're with the provider that's going to be taking over the home, but they're in different locations around the state. The good news is we're going to get back into operation probably sometime around April, back here in Neenah. But until then, the kids are at different locations around the state, unfortunately.
Okay, and then my last question is, this seems like this is really chronic care.
Which is correct.
No, just this human services
Well, we
appears
have,
to be chronic. And when I say chronic care, it's not acute. And when I say acute, it's not something where, you're in and out. You're not going into intensive care and lo and behold, 2 days later, you're out of intensive care.
Yes, but I would say that in the behavioral health world, we have more in and out. In the long-term support area, yes, it's definitely longer term, but more kids are in the home, not placed out. In child welfare, there's a lot of kids that are in their homes, but the kids that are placed out are probably going to be placed out for some number of months, not days, right? Okay. So yes, so when you say, we have a large number that are in and out, but we have also a smaller number that are in placements for longer periods of time.
And my question then comes to, how do you protect yourselves?
Oh.
They do a lot of work for self-care. We do as an agency. Is that what you're talking about? Or safety in these homes?
Self-care, I think you're talking about self-care.
Self-care. How do you?
All of us do a lot. We focus a lot on helping them learn ways to care for themselves. They also learn that in school now. It's kind of cool. They do a lot of teaching them how to take care of themselves in order to do this work. And then we just continue to support them in doing that. We bring agency trainers in, and we have individuals within our own agency that we support each other with.
We do a lot of work on, trauma-informed care, not just for understanding other people's trauma, but understanding how the work traumatizes us,
Yes.
right? And how to take care of ourselves. We do everything we can for adjusted work schedules. If we can help people to adjust their schedules, be flexible with their schedules, let us know when they're burning out, that we can try to help by adding more staff at a given time. So I don't know that we can do everything to prevent burnout, but I think we do. I haven't heard too many people saying they left employment in Winnebago County Human Services because they're burned out.
Well, and you had that wonderful in-service as well.
Yeah, the mental health stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, getting people more in touch with, taking time for yourself, taking time for family. We were in skeleton crew mode over the holidays because we recognize that people need to be with their families, so we're not requiring people other than 24/7. And even those folks, we try to give them ample time off in other days so that they feel like they have a holiday, that sort of thing. So I think we're sensitive to that pretty well.
The other thing that I would say too is that our approach and and all of us, again, how we approach families helps people to manage their self-care. We go in and we're there with them, we partner with them, we support them, we guide them. We don't come in and say, you must do blah, blah, blah. So they like their job better. So the philosophy of Winnebago County itself helps self-care. Does that make sense?
And I was just thinking you could have a whole presentation at one of these on all the different things that we offer through training, critical incident debriefing when there is an incident, the partnering that we all do together. There's so many things that we do to support staff, and not to say that that's still not challenging jobs that they have, but wow, there's quite a lengthy list of things that we do to support staff.
Well, and yourselves as well.
Yep.
Not just your staff. That's super to hear. Thank you. I appreciate it because I've been in chronic care and it's difficult.
Yes, go ahead, Mark.
I think you're right, Beth. A lot of, in Winnebago County, when I worked for Winnebago County too, there was so much, and especially now lately, the last 10, 15 years, there's so much that's done for staff to keep staff from burning out that I didn't see in other counties. And it's really neat to see, because you have to do that, or you're going to lose the good staff. So you're right, exactly.
Yes.
Thank you. Question about going back to hiring and recruitment. Where are the jobs posted?
Well, for different jobs in human services, there's now not just the county website, because that's the first place.
Okay.
I don't think we do a lot on,
We're doing more on Indeed,
we are.
which we didn't used to do as much.
Okay.
They go to Wixa still.
We have the Wisconsin County Human Services Association Job Board.
Okay.
Wisconsin Counties Association Job Board, which is kind of where other people from other counties can see what's available.
And if they go to the job board on those places, then do they get linked back to the county website for the?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so here's the thing. I picked up on this when I became a board member, and I've just sort of been keeping an eye on it. All of Winnebago County jobs are posted on the Winnebago County website. Everybody has to either fill out the application by hand or download it and turn it in. I don't understand why we can't be on NeoGov where everyone else is.
We've been trying.
It hasn't been for.
Bring that up at your next meeting.
I mean,
Oh, you can bring that up at your board meeting.
I mean, everybody's there. This is where people go for jobs, and you put your resume in, and it's there. It's and you just
We
push
hear
a
that
button.
from applicants about like, really, you
I
wanna
mean,
get into the
If I
present times?
if I saw that, I was like, I don't want to apply to Winnebago County. This is too much. I mean, why would I want to work here? What else is kind of back in the Stone Age? But I
Yep,
shouldn't say
but
that
we're in
out
support of
loud,
what
but
you're
that's
saying.
sort
For
of.
sure.
All right, maybe I'll zoom into the PNF meeting.
There you go. Good luck.
On Thursday and talk during public comments.
There you go.
That's just really important. I mean, that would help in recruiting candidates so much.
We have heard the same thing, and I have put in a pitch
Okay.
for that. I will tell you, the answer I get is, one, it's expensive for the county to implement that. And of course, I'm not giving you my answer, Becky, okay? So please don't shoot the messenger.
Okay, you're right,
It's
thank
expensive.
you.
It's expensive, and the other one was that they wanted to explore Munis and some other programs that might have a component. And I can tell you that Janet has been exploring for the last 2 days, what else can we do with Munis and some of those components. But I don't think it would hurt, honestly, if they heard from county board members that you would like to see some product that actually people could just electronically submit their stuff. That would
Well,
be
and
helpful.
it saves time on this side of things
And candidates are more interested in doing something that's easy to fill out.
and I think you can put all sorts of onboarding things there as well. And it,
Who are we losing?
yeah,
Probably a lot of candidates.
Yeah, I agree, that makes sense, they have the county get personnel and finance first, everybody.
I just got applications today from HR. It's been a while, so they all know this. They come in one email, one PDF file, I don't know, maybe 20 applications. Not separated, so if I want to save those, I have to like cut them
The
apart.
second batch will be some of the ones from the same
Yeah.
batch.
That's
Oh, yeah.
archaic.
I mean, it's our time.
In
to-
2024, that's
If they
archaic.
get lost, so you don't get them until a little bit later,
Yeah.
because they're in the wrong file because of human error.
Yeah.
So then by the
So
time.
you've touched on, they are really not up to speed on the new stuff.
I picked up on it right away when I got on the board, because
Okay, Becky, I'm old, I'm not looking for a job, but tell me where I gotta look. What is that one you said?
NEO,
Neo?
NEO
Neo, okay.
dot gov.
I'm looking for, yeah.
I think it's dot
Yeah.
gov.
A
Is it
lot of
dot
counties
gov?
use it.
And that's a
because-
government one, why would you?
A lot of counties, the states use it because
That makes
you can
sense.
fill out an account.
We're losing people.
All of them. Or if you're going to one site, you can use your profile. You can set up a profile
Yep.
as a job seeker. And then if they use NeoGov in a different county or a different state, you can just, use your.
Oh,
your
I'm
file.
sorry, it's it's NEOGOV.com.
NEOGOV.
Okay.
I'm gonna click on it and see what I get.
So isn't a good employee get there worth it?
What, I'm sorry?
Said if you get a good employee off it, isn't he worth it or her
Yeah.
worth it?
Exactly.
That's what I would say.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's all.
That's a very good question.
Dollars and cents you
We
should.
would say yes.
We have surplus money.
I have used it, and it's bad old, I've used it in the past.
I never heard of it before, so that's kind of cool.
Quick question, are they using it in Menasha?
No, because it's old Menasha.
I think a little bit. But I've gone there to see and just search Outagamie County, City of Appleton. You put in Outagamie County, you get all Outagamie County shops postings, all of them, from Brewster Village to Parks Laborer, whatever the title is. And you can do the same for City of Appleton, City of Neenah. They all come up.
And then it also helps on the backside that it like compartmentalizes them. It puts them in like, this is what goes to child welfare, this is what goes to behavioral health. Some of them go to both, some go here, and then you have a system to track them, so you also don't lose anybody. And you make people happy because you also respond to them. Because sometimes when you get that long bunch of things get lost. Yeah, we have a system right now that drops off the numbers.
Good idea.
It's in the right place now.
Number 9, Bill, you're up again.
Okay, I'm up again, and I will make it short. We had a great fall conference at Stevens Point a month ago, and this next one in May is going to be in Wausau. And it's also for board members to attend along with directors and senior staff. So I will be giving you specific announcements about that when I have the dates and the place and how to register for that. I think it would be well worth going to that Wisconsin County Human Services Association Spring Conference. The other thing I wanted to talk about is priorities for the new year. Priorities for us, just want to let you know, is the priority-based budgeting, which I know county board members heard a little bit about during the budget process in October. Chris's name is the CEO of I don't know what, whatever his
Resource
company
X.
is, Resource X. Thank you. That's the priority-based budgeting program that we will be using to, every county department will be into that system. So you will see at budget time, description of all of our programs and how much money goes to each of our programs. A little bit different way of organizing our budget process than we have done in the past, to help decision-making on the county board be a little easier. That's going to be a big priority to get that done this spring. We're still anticipating doing our budget process in June for all of you. And then it goes to the county exec and then on to the county board back in October. So that'll be the same. The other thing that's happening, of course, priority of getting all of our new staff on board, which we've made a good dent in already. That'll be a priority for us to get those folks here and in the first 3 to 6 months know exactly what they're doing, get them all trained, get them up to speed, because we made a lot of promises in this year's budget for revenue expectations and reducing costs. So hopefully that'll all materialize. And I think that's kind of the priority, is basically the priority-based budgeting in the first part of the year and then getting our budget done. Budget is always a big item. We start thinking about it in January. I don't see any really large changes for us. I don't think we're going to be able to take on new programming. We will be kind of monitoring to see, how much we will need to basically kind of keep in line. I guess our goal is cost to continue this year, is try to just keep everything going that we've got going. And we have a lot because we have now 350 some employees, and our goal is to basically use them well. We are definitely the county's largest department, and we have the largest budget. So we need to keep it in line and get the service rate done.
But with your budget, you get a huge amount of reimbursement on it.
Yeah, about 2/3 of our budget comes from federal and state resources. So, yeah, we're hoping that that's going to stick. That's going to stay going. If you look at the federal level, they're running out of money again this month on the 19th, according to what I hear. If I read in the paper or read on.
I can't keep up.
Listen to. So usually the feds hold steady on what they give to the state. The state usually holds steady on what they give to the counties. I'm not expecting any large increases in revenue from either source. So we're going to have to make it work on what they're going to send us. And hopefully we will do well this year. That's my hopeful statement, is I think we're going to, if everything remains kind of as it has been, I think we will do okay. And we will still come up with a surplus at the end of the year. At least what I can see right now on the third day of the year. So I'm giving you a forecast on the third day of the year. That's the whole. But that's my report.
Anybody have questions?
I don't think we can talk about it now, but can I make a request for the next meeting?
I can put it on my bullet points for next month. Yeah.
Okay. I was late to the board meeting last night. Got there around 7, Zoom. And there was some chatter about, there was discussion about capital improvements plan, the facilities assessment. And then capital improvements plan regarding this building, boiler, something or other, roof and boiler.
The roof and boiler have always been a problem.
And then the possibility of closing this location in the next 10 years or so.
Just rumors.
Okay, but if anyone wants to bring me up to speed at the next meeting.
I don't know any more than that. I mean, there's talk of like, should we stay in this building and fix it up, or should we move to a different location? Then the question is, where are you going to move to? Are you going to, what building is large enough to contain us?
I want to get you in trouble
though. So I would say anything about that, when you say move in the next 10 years, that's probably one goal. Another goal is just fix the roof and fix the heating and cooling and stay here for another 20 or 30. So right now, I'm gonna tell you Nostradamus, Bill Topol as Nostradamus is, we're probably still gonna be here and just fix the stuff that's not working.
Well, the boiler and the roof are getting fixed.
Yeah,
That's not.
yeah.
Yeah, they're getting fixed.
They kind of slipped out that they were looking at all different avenues and that's where all that kind of.
There's just loose
So that's
talk
all.
about,
That's-
you know, maybe somebody wants to, you give a piece of land for this to build someplace else. I don't know. I mean, until you get a report on it, Becky,
I
I wouldn't take it to the bank, then remove it. I think we're staying put.
What would be bad for, like you said, if you brought it up and just we talked about your feelings? Because we always hear about what everybody else says and what they think, but we never hear the source.
Where you're
thinking. That's
honestly,
right.
just as you report out, we're maxed out of space here. We are all maxed out of space here. So, if we wanted to do more in the future, we're out of space. And there's really no place to build on here. So, but I think what we did last year of adding 30 staff is unusual. Usually we would add a handful of staff at the most in a given year. So we just had an unusual year of needing a lot of bodies all at once. And so now we're suffering from low maxed out. But I don't see that as a regular. I am not expecting 30 new staff on the docket for next year.
But space was already, has been an issue for years. We make it work.
So anyway, we can put it on for next month. I don't know that I'll be able to give you much more detail.
Okay. Talk. Okay, thank you for your time. Now, the next one would be any board member reports. So you will start, Becky?
Sure.
Reports?
I just want to say thank you for, to everyone and anyone who helped arrange the wave party. That was fun. It was really fun at the Expo Center. That was great. So thank you.
Ed, anything?
Well, happy to be here.
Glad to have you.
Maybe I'll be back next month.
Oh, yeah, got it. Okay.
I just want to say thank you too to all the people that put together the Christmas celebration. It was a lot of fun.
Chris, do you have anything?
Nothing that's fun, thank you.
Harold, anything? Okay.
I've been chatty Cathy.
Well, I happen to have 12 different things here, so.
Oh my God.
No, Larry said, don't. No, just a couple of things. First, I apologize for being a little late. I didn't realize if I flipped over a piece of paper, I had your phone number to call you and tell you, because I'm on the highway, and I kept on looking, I don't have any number, then it was right there. So I apologize for that, for being late. And same thing on that same, because we're in the health department too. The health department now is meeting every month now. In the past, we had meet every other one, but we decided what came up was people want to discuss in meetings. You know, you have reports, they're great, I'm not saying it, but there's always issues out there that we all want to be educated about. So on the health department, we're doing every month, we're meeting on that purpose. And on the flip side, I always said, because there was a couple of meetings that I went to in the last 2 or 3 months, there wasn't a quorum. There wasn't enough people coming. Sometimes people were busy, didn't call, but all I said, and I just told we at our health department, that if you're not gonna make it, like I said, you should always call Pam or somebody, let them know, because we plan, because some meetings, a lot of guests come and then we don't have enough people. We can talk, but we can't really have a meeting. So it's really important as elected people or chosen people for what we do that if it comes up and you can't make it, that's understandable. But at least let us know, because everyone else is coming for that big meeting, you're excited about it, and then you can't have it because you can't. And I'm not saying we did it, but I'm just saying in general, we talked about it. That was kind of important thing that we brought up. So. And the last thing is I appreciate you guys spending my birthday with me. No presents, you didn't have to bring a present. I don't know if you saw the memo. No, there wasn't. All right, well, thanks again for everybody.
Can I add one thing, Ralph? Sorry. Because you asked me for the website, and it's actually NeoGov is actually the company that powers the website.
Okay.
The actual website, I think, is governmentjobs.com.
That's all one word, government jobs?
Yes.
One word.
Good. So I forgot one more thing. When's our next meeting? So everybody kind of knows, or I don't know if we do that.
February 5th.
So first Monday, that's on my
First
calendar.
Monday.
Yes.
February fifth.
That'll be
And
on
it's in
the-
Oshkosh. 'cause
It's
we
an
all-
Oshkosh. We go back and forth, we stack her back and forth, right? And the last one, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of moving?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you, everyone.
There you go.